Welcome to SPK Speak Sports. On our station, we talk about baseball and sports news, from the most recent stories to the throwbacks. Listen now to Scott, Paul, and Kelly on SPK Speak Sports as they hit the ball out of the park.
You hit the ball out of the park, Speak Sports.
Hey, hello. My name is Scott. In France, it's pronounced Scott. And you, sir?
I'm Paul.
And I'm Kelly.
We are SPK Speak Sports. Before we get started, I just want to mention one thing. These two gentlemen here, way too modest. They are woke, okay? I'm not. I'm trying to keep up. It's exhausting. I mean, I think that Algorithms is a former vice president on the dance floor. So these are the guys. So one of you wokest guys started off. By the way, just real quick, you are woke, but you missed a couple of spots this morning. Take care
Well,
of that. Clean it up.
I like that you said that your name in France is Scott. Because it turns out this show, SPK Speak Sports, is an international show. And we're so proud of that. Oh. Well, or somebody has a VPN on their computer from France. But every week we get a download from France, so merci beaucoup.
Oh, yeah.
What do you have?
And?
Oh, I'm supposed to continue.
Just get it all out of the way.
All right,
now.
I'll get it all out of the way. A few weeks ago, we invited comments on YouTube for any listeners on podcasts or viewers on YouTube, and we actually got a few, so I'd like to read them now. Paul Benavides writes, "Hi guys, another great show. Since I was born when the Dodgers were still in Brooklyn, I really appreciate the way you mix the old with the new. Keep up the good work." Well, thanks, Paul. And Paul happens to be an old teammate of mine. We called him Yoda. So
was that a prerequisite to be on the team? Your name was Paul?
I think so, yeah.
Let me just mention for Paul, since he was born when the Dodgers were in Brooklyn, that there's a story, it's a joke actually, and it was about right after the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to L.A. Did you know that they're in L.A. now?
You're kidding.
Yeah, it happened.
Wow.
That somebody would talk to like diehard Brooklyn Dodger fans who were ticked off that they'd moved to L.A. And the guy would come up to somebody and go, he goes, well, if you were in a room with Walter O'Malley, Mussolini, and Hitler, and you had a pistol with 2 bullets in it, what would you do? And the guy said, I'd shoot O'Malley twice.
Oh. Oh, God.
There you go, Paul. That's the Brooklyn Dodgers story. Hey-oh.
Viewer Nancy Wallace asks, can you do 5 of these a week? Mike Golick isn't on ESPN anymore, and I don't like the other radio drivel. Thank you, Nancy. That is so cool.
We would, but we're pretty busy in Idaho on the shooting range pretty much every day.
And this one's going to call for a little conversation, guys.
Okay.
Dan Scott asks, what I would like to hear you guys talk about is, do you really feel the winner of this season should get World Series rings and a trophy?
Oh, well, I definitely do. If you can give it to Houston, who cheated their way, you can give it to the legitimate winner in this COVID era. So I say thumbs up. Whoever wins, they deserve it.
Gets a ring and a trophy?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't talk about this, but I just happen to have the trophy that is going to be presented to this year's World Series winner. Okay, there's the stand, and there's the trophy.
That's not a participation trophy,
That's
is it?
a first place award. So this is, it's not a piece of metal like the commissioner said it was. This is a piece of plastic right here. So I can just see, like the manager holding this puppy up to the cardboard cutouts.
There you go.
So, and then we could, for the rings, you remember the rings, you used to get plastic rings, and
Cracker Jack.
They didn't go all the way around, so you could,
and a pinch
put them
job.
out or pinch them so it fits your finger.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, hey, let Houston win. Let them take home this puppy.
Yeah. Turn the other one in.
For my part, and everybody thinks that the team I root for, even though I'm wearing a Cubs shirt today, the team that I root for, the Dodgers, is the favorite. I have mixed feelings. I think that there will be 20/20 hindsight on this, and we'll know in a few years whether or not it was a legitimate World Series championship for whoever wins. But the thing that really bothers me most about this season isn't that it's just going 60 games. It's the playoff format. It's 16 teams in. It's a best out of 3 for the first round. Any team can beat any other team in 2 out of 3.
Well,
so
know,
gives me
Everybody
pause.
gets the participation.
But this is the thing. You can put, like in the Hall of Fame, you can have a special wing, the COVID wing, where, well, wait a minute. And you have
I can't
a
wait.
special
Get Tim
wing.
Heat on the phone.
A special wing. And it talks about 60 games, the different rules, and something special. So you try to make a negative situation, make it more negative. I don't know. But why not? This is, you know what? American ingenuity is fantastic, and people have tried to go on and make some normalcy. And yeah, it's awkward and it's different, but you know, we got to move forward, right?
After that soliloquy, I think next week it might just be SP Sports.
Okay.
Just saying.
Uh-oh.
I'm ready to click my heels and just say there's no place like next season.
Real quick, a couple of corrections, because we know you're out there and you're fact checking all this stuff, and we have fired our writers, because of this. But last week I said Bobby Bonilla Day on July 1st. He gets 1.19, not 1.2, but 1.19 million dollars a year until 2035. So my Copa, I'm sorry, I'm not getting on a knee, and you made a slight mistake too.
Did I? Let's see. So Billy Ripken said that Cal made him stand, because fans cheered and everything for 22 minutes. But actually, it was after inning 5, which made it an official game, and his home run came in the first inning. So after the 5th inning, everybody cheered. It's official. It's complete, right?
Correct.
That's French, and then that's what they did for 22 minutes. But Billy was still complaining. It didn't really matter, when it was. He was, So that's the
That's
story
all we
on
need,
that.
Kelly.
the only
We only have 3 hours.
Yeah.
The only mistake I made was sitting between you guys.
There you go.
Regular viewer Greg asked about the relationship between catchers and umpires. And Scott, I think since you are a retired umpire from Division I baseball, and I caught a little, maybe we could talk a little bit about the relationship between catchers and umpires.
Sure.
It's a little
You want to
complicated.
get up front, and I'll get behind you, and Kelly can be a
Yeah, there, I can strike out, right?
Well, first of all, we're the only guys facing the correct direction, right?
Right.
The home plate ump and the catcher. Everybody else, and we're the only ones in foul territory.
That's
well,
correct.
not really, but you have some colleagues in foul territory. We fight the elements the same way. We've got the extra padding and protection, and whether it's heat or gnats or gusty winds or whatever, we're kind of in it together. Catchers have to be sure, instead of umpires, not to do Taco Tuesday before a Wednesday game. Stuff like that. But there are certain etiquettes involved in the catching and
Right.
umpiring.
Like catching or blocking the ball.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more disconcerting than, I don't care what level, you're not going to get too much in college, but in high school, certainly doing, we all started doing Pony League, Little League, of a ball in the dirt, and the catcher's jumping up, and it goes underneath him and hits the umpire, instead of getting down and blocking the pitch, and where you feel safe, because it's like if that catcher isn't going to protect you, it's like what you want to do, instead of being in the slot, which is not directly behind the catcher, but in between the batter and the catcher, you're going to move over a little bit right behind the catcher, because you don't want to get hit, which means you can't really see the outside pitch. But we're not there to be hit. That's not our job.
And when you do get hit, it's customary and appropriate for the catcher to take a little walk to the mound, give you some time to recover. And not everybody does that. Of course, they do at the upper levels of the game. But, if there are any younger ball players who happen to be stumbling across this podcast, give that umpire a break and take a trip to the mound.
And in the same regard, the umpire will do the same if the catcher gets his bell rung or whatever. Come out and home plate and say, okay, yeah, I'm fine. No. Because
What about the balls and strikes disagreements?
he's always got to face out towards the pitcher's mound. Never turn your back and to the pitcher and be telling the umpire face to face. That was a strike.
What I would tend to do is if I really felt that he pinched the pitcher, I would just take it on me. I'd catch it, I'd hold it for an extra click, and I'd say, my bad, that's on me, to my pitcher. Throw the ball back, sending a message to him that, I think he missed that call.
You just don't want to show up the umpire,
Right.
And that's not your job. And also, I saw a funny YouTube, a youth ball game, about 10-year-old catcher. They talk about framing, and this is fine, stuff like this, like that, But this kid jumps up. I'm not going to jump. He jumps up and frames it here. So that's a little bit too much of it.
I want to ask a question. I've seen this with players. I've seen it in the major league level. I don't know if it's in the college level. But there's a tradition, I guess, when the game begins and the first batter comes up or something, he taps the shin guards of the catcher or the umpire. I think.
Usually it's the
Is
catcher.
Okay, so where did that come from? What does it mean?
I have no idea, but it's kind of like a
respect,
nonverbal, hey, meet.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, meet. How good to see you again, especially like maybe the beginning of the season or something like
And
that.
how about when a catcher is hitting, but he plays when he's on defense, he goes back and say he calls you out and you don't think it is, you have your say, and what happens when you come behind the plate and now you're the defense player, you're still and you maybe he's rung you up with a bases loaded on a pitch that you don't feel he's calling, and all of a sudden boom, he rings you up. Now you got to go behind the plate, catch, and you're seething.
Yeah.
So how do you work that?
I would try to use a little bit of humor, believe it or not, and I'd come out back to the take my position, and I'd just say something like, hey, we took a vote and one of us missed that call, and then
I would
was
just
about it.
eject anybody and
Yeah.
everybody, just like Joe West. You see that the other day, the Nationals game.
General manager.
Cowboy Joe. And here's another thing. My saying is, if you don't like an umpire's call in the big leagues, deal with it. They're in a union. They ain't going anywhere. And Joe West has kind of always been bigger than the game, as well as physically. And he looks up, and of course you can't hear. There's no fans to hear except the general manager, Mike Rizzo, is I guess getting on his case, and he ejects him. I think later he said, well, he ejected him because he wasn't wearing a mask, like 150 feet away in the second level.
Yeah.
But wait a second, hold on. Oh my gosh, that's. Talk about a coincidence. Hey, meat.
Hey, meat.
Hey, meat. What a coincidence that is. Hey, meat. Hey, meat. What should you not say when meeting a baseball player who's a vegetarian?
Oh, man.
Speaking of Tommy Malone, Tommy Malone has a distinction, and I had some games with Tommy Malone in high school where I lived in Valencia, California, and really nice kid, never threw hard, always a lot of good control, left-hander, so that helped. But he's the first guy, he was the starting pitcher on the 29-9 game that Atlanta beat Miami the other day, and he's the first guy ever to be a starting pitcher and have his team score 10, or in this case 11 runs. The other time was 10, this is 11, and not pitch enough innings to get the win.
Oh, God.
I think he just went on the IL.
I think he went to the designated spot, I think.
Oh, really?
Think DFA?
And speaking of that, the FDA, is that it?
Designated for assignment.
Designated for assignment, Eddie Alvarez from Miami has been designated for assignment. Well, he's hitting 189.
Well,
Better
he was
than
there.
being-
He was there.
DOA.
Yeah.
True that. What happened this week in baseball, Scott?
Well, unfortunately, Lou Brock passed away. Yes. Another Hall of Famer, and we lost Lou Brock and Tom Seaver. I did not mention this, and I checked it. You said I did, but I didn't. That Tom Seaver is only the second pitcher in big league history to have 300 or more victories, 3,000 or more strikeouts and an under 3 ERA, along with Walter Johnson. So, but very interesting. Within 6 days, those two passed, and no batter faced Tom Seaver more than Lou Brock, and no pitcher faced a batter more than Tom Seaver pitching Lou Brock. So both good gentlemen. We lost Al Kaline a number of months ago, another gentleman. So we've lost some really good guys who are Hall of Famers. Brock hit 250 against Seaver. And that's one of the worst trades that was ever made.
Yes.
Probably, obviously, the worst trade ever was Babe Ruth to the Yankees. That's obviously always going to be number one. And but Brock to the Cardinals for the infamous Ernie Broglio, who won about 7 games after he was traded to the Cubs.
And it was not popular with the
not at the time.
Cardinals.
And the other trades that come to mind, though, speaking of Seaver, was, and I think we talked about this last week, Seaver to the Reds. They had a contract dispute, and Mets said, see ya. And then the Mets trading Ryan to the Angels was another bad trade. So the Mets are 0 for 2 definitely on that one.
And it's always pitching. It's always they always develop good pitchers.
And the other thing that's happening today, this is more for Paul than, well, could be for anybody. Did you see where there are 2 banners that are going to be behind a plane flying around overhead Dodger Stadium tonight before the Dodgers-Astros game? I think somebody in Georgia paid to have a banner, a sign, behind. Actually, 2 people have. There's 2 signs. They basically say the same thing. But the one says, steal this sign, Astros.
I love it.
So because of the airspace and everything, they can only do it prior to the game. And the other one says, hey, Astros, and instead of an O, it's an asterisk. Astros, seal this sign. So
now, do you think 2021 people will continue if the season goes regular and there's fans?
I think they're chomping at the bit.
I think
like,
so. I don't think they have long memories, right?
Well, look at Doug Edding, the umpire that kind of kicked a call years ago.
Yeah, I
against
still
the
hold
Angels
it against them
in the playoffs, and people still boo him when he's at Anaheim Stadium. So I think they'll be ready.
I've seen a few fingers go up in the air when it comes in.
Very impressed, too, real quickly, looking at Clayton Kershaw. 2.43 ERA lifetime, and he's got almost a 700 winning percentage.
Unbelievable.
That's phenomenal. That's enough about the Dodgers. What do you got? Don't give us another.
Well, I want to talk about the Cubs, but first I do want to mention a very worthy this day in baseball. In 1938, on this day in baseball, I think the Abner Doubleday myth of creating baseball was officially, finally debunked. And Alexander Cartwright was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame as being probably the principal, and this too is disputed because people dispute just about anything. But Cartwright was the father of baseball, according to the study that was done by the Hall of Fame and baseball, Major League Baseball at the time.
Not Doubleday?
Not Abner.
I am always the last to know.
I know.
Oh.
But it was on this date.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'd like to talk about the Cubs, though. Last week I mentioned Tampa Bay and how they were that team from, for those of us who live in the West, team out of nowhere. And how do they do it? Who are these guys? Well, similarly, although not quite as impressively, the Chicago Cubs. They maintain this 3-game lead in the National League Central. They don't have anybody in the top 10. They don't have anybody in the top 10 in home runs. They don't have anybody in the top 30 in RBI.
Man, it's so sad.
They have Yu Darvish, who's lights out on the mound. They've got a couple of other, pretty workmanlike pitchers. Kyle Hendricks opened the season with a complete game shutout on opening day. And then today, wouldn't you know it, Mills, what's his first name? Alec Mills. He's throwing a no-hitter as we speak. I haven't checked the phone since it was the top of the 8th inning, but so the Cubs have a little bit of pitching, but other than that, they're just playing team baseball, staying in the hunt, staying actually at the top.
Clutch, like last night. They were
Jason Hayward,
Yeah, they were losing, to Milwaukee, and Justin Hayward hits a 3-run home run in the top of the 9th inning against Hader, Milwaukee's closer. That was his second blown save of the season.
Yeah.
And boom, they come back and they were winning like 10-0. And it shows you can lose a game 39-9 and it's, you turn off the game after you're 15, 17 runs behind. But a game like last night for like Milwaukee, who's trying to hold on and stay close, they're just right on the outskirts of getting into the playoffs. It had an effect today, probably.
Yeah, well, and because the Brewers, along with the Mets and the Reds and the Rockies, they're not in at this point, but they're only a couple of games back, but they're running out of time. And in the American League, it's Detroit, Baltimore, and Seattle, all the same records, and they're a couple of games behind. So it's good to see those teams that have been also Rams for a few years at least have a shot at the participation trophy.
Kelly made a comment about that 29-9 game. My goodness, there were a lot of scores this week that were just off the charts. And is it because it's football season? Or
I think they've caught up to a lot of these pitchers. There's a lot of guys that are in the league that are borderline, and guys have gotten hurt or COVID or this or that, and it's just
some have opted out.
These are professionals, Kelly. That's no excuse.
Yeah, well,
making hundreds and millions of dollars.
True.
Also we need to get a real sponsoring here real quick. Sponsored this week by Mutton Buster Beer.
They're not going to pay us if you say it.
Brown Ale.
Or if you don't.
Next time you want to bust your mutton, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Kelly?
Yeah, I just Chapman is out, got hurt for Oakland, so that might hurt their chances. And they're like they win like 95, 97 games, and then they get in the first round, and boom, they're
Is
gone.
it 95 or 97?
96.
Okay.
Let's go for the in the middle, and so that's going to hurt him. He's a good player, and
although he started off great, but I think he's under the Mendoza line.
oh yeah, but he had a lot of power, and
Doesn't
his
help
hip,
him.
he's going to have hip surgery, so he was hurting.
Yeah.
And he played, and so we'll watch Oakland, see what they do. I like Minnesota in the American League, but Tampa Bay, don't count them out, even though you can't name any of the players. And another thing with them is
Who are those guys?
they average. The last few years, you can't count this year, but the last few years, Tampa Bay averages 15,000 fans, thereabouts, per game.
But if you take their series with the Yankees out of the mix, they probably average about 540.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about Wrigley Field? I was watching the game the other day. I don't know if they're the only stadium, but there are no cardboard cutouts. I mean, it is totally empty. Looks like a men's league game.
Yeah.
But they've got about 70 or 80 people up across the street in those stands above the houses there. So that looks odd. So as goofy as the cardboard cutouts are, at least it provides an illusion.
Well, we'll have to call the Ricketts family and find out.
I would like to know what that situation is there.
Well, maybe we can get them on the show and say,
I'm sure.
I have one more on this day in baseball, because baseball really changed on this day in 1934. Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis sold World Series broadcasting rights to the Ford Motor Company. For the first time, the rights were sold to broadcast the series. Prior to that, anybody could broadcast for free. Didn't have to pay any fee to baseball at all.
Wow.
$100,000, and think of what it means now.
Oh.
And there's another thing I timed in between innings from the last pitch to the next half inning. 2 minutes and 50 seconds. The rule is 1 minute. So I go back again. If you can just boost up the rates to the advertisers, the little guys are going to go by, but the big boys are going to pay more money. And you're going to cut. If you cut a minute out of every half inning, that's 18 minutes right there. There was a game the other day. It's like 3:10 and the game was 1-0.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No game should go over 2 hours 30 minutes. 9-inning game. Never go past that.
Aaron Judge, I don't think right now, I think at one point he was maybe going to be the face of baseball, but you got to play, he's been hurt twice, almost back to back.
Yeah.
The first time he hurt his calf, hitting second base, running out a home run, trotting a home run.
Right.
Then he comes back and he gets hurt again, and he's off.
His leg again.
Couple of odd, so that was an odd injury, and a couple of other odd injuries in 1990. Glenn Allen Hill, who was with the Blue Jays at the time, he was afraid of spiders.
Yeah.
He went on the DL, it was a DL back then, after falling through a glass table resulting in cuts and bruises to his feet, knees and elbows. He had just woken up from a nightmare of spiders chasing and devouring him. In his confused state, he fell through the table. So you're on the DL. But so it's funny now because the guy, didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
But the ultimate, 1923, Clarence Breathen. Doesn't that sound like a guy from 23? Red Sox. He thought he looked older and meaner if he took his false teeth out when he pitched. And he put them back in. He put them in his back pocket. He forgot to put them back in his mouth when he was batting, and he gets on base. And while sliding in the second base to break up a double play, his own teeth bit him in the butt, and he was injured. He was on the
All right.
the DL, the IL, some kind of L.
Yeah.
So anyway, but so we got a couple of weeks left before the playoffs, and we're wrapping up. Well, what do you got? You guys.
The only thing I have left to say is that if the Dodgers are hearing footsteps, they belong to Padres. Little pitter patter of little Padre feet. And as a Dodger fan, I'm a little nervous.
Well, I wouldn't. Don't be too nervous. I think Dodgers are in.
All right.
All right.
This isn't a sponsor, but I just thought, buy drink. It's kind of a sponsor. Maybe the California Angels of Los Angeles and Anaheim might have, because for this season,
It's done.
bye.
Yeah. That's why
Bye.
college football, I turned my head to that after, in the next few weeks.
We'd just like to leave you with this. Myself and my two woke friends here. If you miss a minute of this show, you've missed a minute of this show. So for my woke friends, Kelly and Paul, I'm Unwoke Scott. Merci beaucoup, and thank you. See you another time.
Vive la France.
Bye.
You hit the ball out of the park with SPK Sports. You hit the ball out of the park with Scott, Paul, and Kelly. You hit the ball out of the park, Speak Sports.